Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains episode review. This time, I will be giving my thoughts, and hopefully you guys will as well down below, on episode 18 of Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains, and let's just get right into it. What did I think of this episode? I thought it was a marvelous episode. I thought this was probably, if not my favorite, one of my favorite episodes, and I think what this episode did so well. For so long now, for 18 episodes, we have wondered one main thing. Oh, there's been a bunch of things we've wondered, I shouldn't say that, but the one main core element is what happened 10 years ago to everyone, right? Because, you know, and then there's kind of subsections of that, like, who is Revolver? Is Revolver Kusanagi's brother? But everything that we've wondered derives from what happened 10 years ago. If you tell us what happened 10 years ago, all the other answers should be laid out right in front of our eyes. You know, what was Aoi one of those 6 children? Was there any meaning to the 6 children that was saved? Is there any relation between the kids and Soul Technologies? And, you know, what are Akira's motives? What are all these character motives? And this episode, what it did so well is it answered questions without really answering questions, right? Because now we know from this episode that Yusaku was kidnapped. We also know about Akira and Aoi and about the Zaizens, and I'll get more into that, and their, you know, tragic backstory, which it was kind of already hinted at. You know, we knew what happened to their parents, but we really saw an in-depth look at how tough their lives became and the things that Akira had to do, and I'll get more into that. But this episode, it gave us answers, but it really didn't give us answers, because there are still so many unanswered questions, and I think that is when Yu-Gi-Oh! Is at its best, when it's kind of course, you know, I'm just as curious as you guys are, but now I'm sure everyone who watched this episode, or 99% of people who watched this episode, will be itching for next week, because next week we most likely will find out more about what happened. They kind of teased us, but at the same time, we've waited over 4 months for any sort of answers, so the reveals in this episode were awesome. And despite the fact that we didn't get everything, which I'm perfectly okay with, I wouldn't have wanted everything in one go, we got a good amount to keep us, at least I know myself, itching for more answers and really hoping that we get more answers next week, and I'm sure we will, because the show really has not failed to deliver so far, and you know, let's get right into it. All I'm going to say is general impressions, very enjoyable episode, one of my favorites. So we learn right away about Akira's motivations. That was probably the most interesting aspect going into this episode for me. Why is Akira trying to stop Playmaker? And we learn right away that he viewed the incident, and actually he's not necessarily trying to prevent Playmaker from learning about the incident so that Playmaker can take actions. He wants to take the actions himself, and he tells Playmaker, I will make sure this is handled, I will make sure this makes it to the public, or he says something along those lines. You have to trust me, I will take care of this. And the big key here too is he does not know, and we have to imagine that Emma does not know, that Playmaker is Yusaku, because he says something along the lines of, I'm assuming you were one of the kids that was kidnapped, or you were one of the children from the incident 10 years ago, but clearly he doesn't know that it's Yusaku. He has not put that together yet, which I guess if they're not going to realize that, you know, normal-looking Yusaku and Playmaker are the same person, they're not going to realize that, you know, child Yusaku and Playmaker are the same person. So I guess at least with the continuity of that, it kind of still works out that they're still very clueless on the obvious. I mean, the fact that people don't realize Emma is Ghost Girl is kind of the same concept. She literally just puts a mask over her face, and all of a sudden she's this new person. But it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Logic. I don't look too much into it. You really can't. Also, Emma tells us basically what we've known for a long time now, that it was in a win-win situation, because Ignis says, and Ignis was maybe my only complaint of the episode. If you like that kind of comic relief, and if you like Ignis, then this was your episode, because he was extra. I'll use that term. He was very extra in this episode, and there were a couple lines he said that were really funny. Scary Pooch, that was a really funny line, because Akira's deck, and I'll get more into that. That is a perfect term to describe Akira's deck and that Tindangle Hound monster. But Emma basically tells us she was in a win-win. Even if she lost, she was going to use them as a decoy, and Yusaku realizes that right away. And that's it. Emma backs away and lets the two guys, Akira, Zaizen, and Playmaker, go at it. And it's funny because we didn't have any build up to Akira. We didn't even know Akira was a duelist until literally the end of episode 17. None of us knew that. So we don't know going into this if Akira is a good duelist, if he's a bad duelist. We do know that Emma, that ghost girl, is a respectable duelist. I think most people would call her a pretty skilled duelist in this Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains world. And she immediately credits Akira and immediately says, Akira's deck is tough. This will be interesting. So right there, maybe they could have, built up his dueling ability a little better than that, than just kind of throwing it at us, but that's a classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing, so I'm not going to really bash on him too much for that. But at least there was some kind of validation in Akira's dueling before this duel started, so I kind of like that aspect of it. And the duel does begin. Blue Angel, by the way, she comes in at the very beginning. She's watching. No one knows she's there, so I'm not going to really talk about her or Emma for the rest of the review because they were just kind of spectating at this point. And the real interesting stuff happens, as you would expect, in the duel. The action, I thought, was very enjoyable. Akira runs Tindangles are basically flip effect monsters. So with the trap card that Akira ends up playing, as long as he has a face down monster and a face up, as long as he has a face up monster, a face-up Tindangle monster, Playmaker has to attack that monster. He cannot attack any face-down monsters, and just the effects keep letting him set monsters and flip them, and it's just one of those. It kind of reminded me of Ghost Tricks a little bit. That's the only deck that I kind of experimented a little bit on Yugioh Pro, the only flip effect deck, I should say, that I experimented with. Didn't really like it because it was kind of a stally deck. It was a very defensive deck, and this deck is very similar, but if you like playing Ghost Tricks, if you like playing those kind of decks, then this absolutely is the deck for you. And I might be a little in the unpopular opinion here, but I loved the design of these monsters. These designs were gross as hell. Tindangle Angel, the aesthetics were not pleasing at all. It was not, a nice angel monster to look at, but it had this kind of darker, demonic look to it that kind of weirdly worked. You have Aoi, who plays these really friendly, fun monsters, these really nice-looking, cute monsters, I guess you can call them, cutesy monsters. And then you have Akira, who plays these demonic, ugly, gross monsters, especially Tindangle Hound, which had an eye in its mouth, like right above its tongue. The design on that dog was awesome, and the best way I can describe it, Scary Pooch, which is how Ignis described it, because that is a perfect way to describe it. Akira gets the upper hand. I believe when this episode ends, Akira has 3,900. Playmaker has 2,000 life points left, so it'll go into next episode. It might even go into 20, which that's why this is also such an awesome time for the entire community, because whether you like spoilers or you don't, we don't know anything past episode 19. We've got nothing about 20 or so on, so everyone, whether you watch spoilers or don't, we're in the same boat, which is really, really awesome, and that doesn't happen too much, so that's really cool. We have no idea where this show is going to go from here on out. We only know a little bit about 19, so this duel very well could carry into 20 and 21. We'll just have to wait and see. And the episode ends with Playmaker summoning Firewall Dragon. And I'm not going to really go too much into the dueling because, that's not really my expertise. But I thought the action was really good. We see Playmaker summon Decode, Encode, and Firewall, which was awesome. Akira, it's basically an anti-Link deck, but it looks like in the 19 preview he might summon a Link monster, which looked really cool. Like some huge tablet appeared behind him and flames rose like he was standing in front of a volcano. So that's going to be really awesome if he does summon a Link monster in the next episode. But it's basically an anti-Link deck. The most interesting parts of the episode in terms of the story had to be Akira and Aoi's backstory and the outburst from Playmaker and especially from Kusanagi. I'll talk about that first, actually. Playmaker and Kusanagi both say that you know nothing about us. When Akira says, I understand your pain, he gives his deposition. And Akira went through hardships. He went through one of the toughest things you can go through, loss of a parent, and he was basically alone and fighting for survival. But he can't really relate to Playmaker because Playmaker was kidnapped and everything was stolen away from him. At least Akira had Aoi, and that's the thing that I got from this. Akira and Aoi had each other, and they still do have each other, and they care for each other, and Playmaker didn't really have anyone from what we know because everything was stolen from him. He was kidnapped. And with the fact that human trafficking is such an issue in real life in today's modern age, unfortunately, it's one of the worst things that goes on in society. you almost feel like this is another kind of small, subtle reference to reality where Playmaker and a bunch of other people were kidnapped as kids by this corporation for reasons unknown, and we'll find out those reasons. And I don't think Kusanagi was kidnapped, but obviously his brother was kidnapped, because we see the same flashback of his brother sitting in that dark room. And very similar to how Akira was probably around Kusanagi's age, he still had Aoi. Kusanagi did not have his brother, and that's why you feel the pain and you feel the anger and pure resentment, not towards Akira. And Playmaker says that, you're probably a good guy, but you know nothing about me. And that was an awesome, awesome sequence. Just to go off that a little bit, the Zaizen's backstory was very harsh. They lost their parents, Aoi and Akira, in a tragic car accident, and they literally had nothing left. Akira was, he had to hack for some, douchey guy. I doubt the guy even paid him much, and the guy said, if you don't break into this bank in 5 minutes, I'm gonna break your arms. So I'm sure he was probably associated with, like, the Yugioh Mafia. That's probably what they were, insinuating there. Akira is able to hack, and, Akira is the absolute man. He is, and I want to apologize to him for thinking that he was going to be maybe, as I put it, the main bastard behind everything after the first few episodes. Maybe the main antagonist. I do apologize for that directly to him, because he is the most, in my eyes, respected character in the Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains universe at the moment from what we know. A 16-year-old. He's also 26, which is very old for a reoccurring Yu-Gi-Oh! Character. I don't know what Yuma's sister was. I think she was like 18, 19, if we ever got her age. I'm pretty sure we did, but she definitely was not 26. So the fact that Akira is 26 is actually pretty staggering. He really is up there, especially for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Character. But at 16 years old, to have the mindset that his 6-year-old sister is not going to be upset, that he will not let this make a 6-year-old girl unhappy, and it's not even his biological sister. I mean, that gave me chills when you really think about it. That is just that is beyond maturity. That is beyond just compassion for human life, and Akira is the absolute man. I already had a lot of respect for him based on the past few episodes, but this episode, I have the utmost respect for him. And if he wins this duel, honestly, I'm not going to be too upset about it. I'm kind of low-key hoping he wins this duel, because he's not really trying to prevent this horrible incident from, he's not trying to keep it under wraps from what we know. He's trying to expose it, but he wants to be the one that handles it. Mainly because that's just the professional thing to do, and I guess he feels maybe it's his responsibility since this still is his company. So I don't even blame him for taking that route. So Akira, you're the absolute man. The backstory was very, very sad. One of the sadder, well, actually I shouldn't say that. We've seen tragic backstories in Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot, but I'm glad that it's the most tragic backstory we have in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains thus far. But I'm sure when we get more information on Yusaku's backstory, Kusanagi's backstory, Revolver's backstory, heck, even maybe Emma's backstory, that could change. The Emma one maybe not, but definitely Kusanagi and Revolver and Yusaku, because we know they were kidnapped. We don't know much more than that. Why did Soul Technologies want to kidnap them? Was it to train them to fight these AIs? Was it to train them to be these superhuman duelists in case AIs tried to take over? Maybe kind of like war duelists? Who really knows? But guys, we are in for a real treat in episode 19, because we are going to get most likely a lot more information on this, and we got so much information on 18 that I can't even complain about a lack of information. I thought the duel was great. Again, just an absolutely marvelous episode. I really, really love this episode, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys about this. So please leave all your thoughts down below. I will be talking to you in the comment section down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, thank you for the constant support. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.